Hi, I'm Lauren from TastyPC.tv, and today we're doing a review of the new Corsair Graphite 380T, which is a Mini-ITX case and available in either black, white or yellow. And as you can see, I've got the yellow version, which I really love the shade of. I do think it's really just kind of fun and cheery, but obviously there'll be those of you out there who yellow isn't quite your taste, so they also do a black and white version. But let's get started. So firstly we've got the front IO, which is very symmetrical, and we have got this really nice on button which resembles a car start stop button. We've also got two USB 3 ports, headphone and microphone jacks, a much larger restart button than I'm used to seeing to mirror the fan controller button, and also a fan controller which can run 3 different speeds. I'm presuming either 5 volts, 7 volts or 12 volts, but it doesn't actually say anywhere. And this is powered by SATA and control 3 4-pin fans. And I am glad that it's powered by SATA rather than Molex because, in a little case like this, unless, for example, you're going to be water cooling and you need, like a Molex connector to power your pump, you're not going to need to plug in a Molex cable for anything. And I wouldn't have wanted to have to plug in the additional cable just to power it. So if it had been Molex, I wouldn't have used it, but as it's SATA, I will be using it. We've also got hard drive activity LED, and all of this actually lights up, white if you've got the yellow or white version of the case, and red if you've got the black version. And also under this lip we've got this plastic strip with an LED which acts as like a power LED, and if you've got it sat so that this lip is kind of just under eye level so that you can't see the like strip or the LED, you just have this really kind of subtle white light and it looks really nice. But this ridge actually sticks out so far that you might think that it's like to help carry the case if it wasn't for this big handle, which is textured. But yeah, so with the handle, it has got metal inside it and it is very sturdy. It does make it very easy to carry the case, but the case is a lot heavier than you'd expect given that it's got a metal inner frame, which does also make the case a lot sturdier, which is great because from certain angles the case does look kind of a little bit plastic fantastic, so I was a little bit concerned that maybe it wouldn't have the greatest build quality, but it does feel very sturdy and it is a very sturdy handle. Although I have to say the plastic itself doesn't sit quite flush, but given the shape of the case and the shape of the pieces used, I'm not really sure what Corsair could have done to improve on that. But all of the yellow bits are kind of secured to the metal inner frame with just clips and tabs or screws, so it looks like it'd be very easy to completely disassemble the case, to paint it, etc. Even though I haven't had to go myself, but I may do at some point. Okay, so at the front of the case we have got this dust filter, a fan grill which clicks off and then has a dust filter attached to it. And behind that you can fit either two 120mm fans, a single 140mm fan or a single 200mm fan. And Corsair have provided a white LED 140mm fan, and if you get the black version then you get a red LED fan. I don't actually know why they didn't do a red and black version in the case rather than yellow and black. I mean, the yellow and black is nice, but the red and black version would have just been really, really nice. But I will talk about water cooling or radiator options when we're looking inside the case. Now, with the side panels, they both mirror each other, and they both got this clear plastic strip which runs across the top, acting as a window to allow you to see, inside the case. And then below that we've got this honeycomb grille with a dust filter attached. And this is actually a lot sturdier than Corsair kind of side panels have been recently, my guess being due to this thick plastic kind of inner frame. But the side panel secured to the case with this black handle, and the handle secured to the side panel with these little kind of tabs. I'm not going to lie though, I'm not all that keen on the side panel's appearance, mainly just because I find that with dust filters, once they get dusty, even if you clean them, they never just kind of look all new and shiny again, so it makes me worry that maybe after a few months of using the case, it might just look kind of, a little bit messy and just not particularly fantastical. So with the side panel removed, the first thing I noticed was this little switch here, which controls an LED mounted in the roof, and that's powered by the same SATA connector as the fan controller, and that just gives you some really nice subtle white in-case lighting, which I do really like. But you can see here with the motherboard tray, it extends along with a sheet of metal here, and this is riveted in, and it looks like it may get in the way slightly when you're building a ring in the case, so I'll have to see when I'm building a ring in the case. But I imagine it's also there not only just to add to the overall sturdiness of the case and the motherboard tray, but also to give you somewhere to hide your cables underneath and also to hold up this hard drive cage, which can fit two 2.5 or 3.5 hard drives or solid state drives. And then you've also got this little mount here, which can fit two more 2.5-inch drives. And both of these kind of cages or mounts are removable. Now, one thing with the 250D and what was supposed to set it apart from cases like the Bitfinex Prodigy was that rather than the hard drive cages being in front of the power supply like this, they were off to the side to allow you to go for much longer power supplies. And as you can see, they haven't done that here, which does mean that you are going to be limited with how long you can go for power supply, only 160mm with the hard drive cage in. However, with the hard drive cage removed, you do have a full 290mm of space to work with for both your power supply and cables, meaning that you can go for the longest power supplies. But with fitting a power supply in the case, you've got this kind of bracket here which you secure the power supply to before you slide it in, and then you secure both to the case with thumb screws. And the power supply does have a removable dust filter from the bottom, which on the yellow version, the actual mesh itself is yellow, which is pretty funky. And as the power supply intakes through the floor, we've got these large feet to help lift the case off the floor, which have got rubber bottoms to help prevent vibrations and stop you from scratching your desk. So in terms of cooling with the 380T, as well as the fan mounts in the front, we've also got one in the back, which can fit either a 120mm fan or radiator. And here Corsair provided an AF120L, which is an LED like the fan in the front. I'm guessing because the case has already got inbuilt lighting and it's just kind of pointless. But, then again, that like an LED fan might add to the LED in the roof and just make it a lot nicer. But then we've also got these two brackets along the back, which will allow you to fit either 220mm fans or a 240mm radiator. And in terms of a rad config here, the thickest I was able to fit was a 30mm thick rad and a set of standard 25mm fans, because any thicker than that and it would hit into the clips at the top of the memory slots. Now, if I had had it so that the fans were on the bracket side rather than the inside, I might have bought myself a couple of millimetres by not having the screws for the fans sticking out towards the motherboard. However, if I had the fans on the bracket side, then given that the radiator would have been sat more here, the fittings would have actually hit into this rear 120mm fan, and I wouldn't have been able to have the rear 120mm fan here, because with this radiator, given how far the end tank sticks out past the fan mounts, you have to have it so that the fittings are on this side. You cannot have it so that the fittings are towards the front of the case because of how far the clips stick out which hold the front panel on. But the brackets that the radiator is held onto are completely removable, so you can remove them, then secure rad or fans to it and then screw them back into the case, or you could just kind of do what I did and slide the rad and fans in through the top and then kind of hold it in place and tighten it up while it was there. And then in regards to what radiators you can fit in the front, because of this sheet of metal, you're not able to fit a 240mm rad here, which does kind of suck. But you could probably just remove the hard drive cage and then Dremel kind of like a radiator shaped hole in the sheet of metal, but I don't know what that would do for structural integrity. What Corsair possibly could have done is made it so that the hard drive cage mounted in the floor, and then this just had like a kind of radiator shape kind of cut in it, but the kind of the design they've got now would be much better for cable management than the one that I'm thinking of. Now, you're supposed to be able to fit 140mm rad in the front, but I haven't been able to see the mounts to do so. But you can, however, fit a 120mm rad in the front. And here I fit a 60mm thick 120 in push-pull, and with the end tank down this side, I'm actually able to keep the 240 in the other side of the case. So in this kind of system here, I've got an ST30 240 in pull and a UT60 120 in push-pull, which is pretty sweet. And this is actually probably what I would do with this build if I was going to be water cooling it. And it'd be a very simple little water cooling loop to do, as long as you were careful in the order you did things. So you made sure to tube up from that rad to the block and stuff before putting in your graphics card and this rad, so that you can properly get your hand in. But what I probably do is just have from the bottom of the 240 rad to the block, then from the block down here to a little tube pump res, which I just have sat in the bottom, obviously straight across from here to the top of that rad, and then from here to the res again. And I would have actually put this together for the review build if I had a single tube pump res to be able to sit in the bottom and obviously tube it all up, but I don't have one, unfortunately, let alone one small enough to fit in the build. But with the end tank this side, obviously the thicker you come with the rad and the thicker you go with the tubing and your fittings, the less length you've got to work with for your graphics card. Although you can mount it this way around instead with the end tank on this side, and it means that the end tank will no longer be kind of where the graphics card sits, and it means you'll have the full 290mm of space to work with for your graphics card. However, even if you go for a thinner rad which has a shorter end tank, you no longer have the space to fit both a rad and a set of fans in these brackets, only a set of fans. I imagine though that if you're going to be mounting like a HATI, this is where you're going to do it. Although if you are going to be using a CPU like air cooler, you've got roughly 140mm of space to work with for your CPU air cooler. One thing I should probably mention though is that if you do have the 120 rad in the front of the case with the end tanks this side, while you are unable to fit a 240 rad here and a set of fans, you are still able to fit a 30mm thick 120 radiator here, and then as long as you're careful with the fittings on that rad, also a 120 rad in the back, essentially having a 360mm radiator. So I've now pretty much built a rig inside the 380T, except for the graphics card, because obviously once I put that in, you're not really going to be able to see inside the case and what it is that I've done. But I went for all noctua industrial fans, one on the rear exhausting, two on the brackets intaking, because it seemed like a good idea at the time, and then also a HATI in push-pull. And these three fans are on the fan controller, but the two on the HATI are plugged directly into the motherboard. I did find though with the 120mm fan that I've got in the front, as there's like a thin bit of plastic that kind of covers the top of it, the industrial noctuas were actually slightly too thick to fit, so I had to remove the rubber corners on one side of the fans to be able to get them to fit. With it like this, I also could have mounted a 120mm fan in the bottom of the front, but obviously I don't have any hard drive cages fitted for it to cool, and even though the airflow would have come through the cables and still got to the graphics card, I didn't really see much point in mounting it there. Now in terms of cable management with this case, I really didn't put in as much effort as I usually do, and it does definitely show, but that's just because the 380T's embargo is the same time as X99, and I'm currently trying to film the X99 videos as well as the 380T video at the same time, and I've got a test running as we speak, or as I talk, sorry, so I didn't really have much time to kind of just sit there with the cable management and make it look all neat. Now what I wanted to do was slide in the hard drive cage to just kind of hide the cables a little bit, but I found that because I've already kind of cabled it all up, I actually couldn't push the cables out of the way enough to get the hard drive cage in. So what I would do if I was kind of rebuilding this from scratch is have the hard drive cage already mounted, fit the SSDs in the hard drive cage, and then just have all of the cables tucked underneath and behind it. And then it would probably look even worse from the other side in cable management wise than it does now, but at least here would have looked a lot neater. So yeah, all I've got to do now is fit the graphics card, which as the kind of PCIe mounts are kind of stuck on the outside, it uses one of those little mounting methods where you kind of slide it down and then use a thumb screw to secure it in place, which I always find kind of fiddly, but you know, I understand why they have to do it. So moving on to the conclusion, I really love that with the 380T it's not just a standard black box. Like I really love the shape of it and how it looks, and I think that the angles do give it kind of an aggressive look while looking really cute at the same time. I would love it if Corsair released different coloured versions, or if they also kind of sold separate side panels, so, you know, like what Bitfinex did with the Prodigy. So, you know, for example, if you walk cooling your GPU and you didn't need the mesh, then you could get like a full window side panel, or, you know, at least where your graphics card stops. And as I said before, with the side panel being mainly dust filters, while, you know, dust filters are easy enough to clean, I just feel like it could take quite some time getting it to look all, you know, kind of new again if you were taking it somewhere like a LAN. Also with this case, I feel like it doesn't do the best job of showing off your hardware, so, you know, you have to be like at such an angle to the case to see inside the window that there might as well not be one in terms of, you know, showing off the parts. And then also if you take off the side panel to, you know, for example, show someone your sexy graphics card, you're just kind of met with this bundle of cables. I do feel like that if you know, were slow and you took your time and you just kind of settled with the case, you would be able to do a really good job with the cable management and make it look all neat. But I just didn't have time because it was X99 season. But I really love this case. I mean, it's not perfect, but there's just something about it. And for that reason, I have to give it my sweet award. But I'd love to know what you think of the case in the comments below, and also what you think of the yellow version. Do you like the shade? Do you not? But if you like the video, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and you want to see more of my videos. And thanks for watching.